Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Argent Saga video. Today we are going over the cards that are going to be in Generations, which is an expansion pack that Alter Reality Games is going to do with their card games. So they're going to have these expansion packs that come in between course sets. So our first course set was Betrayal, and that released at the beginning of August. And the next course set, I think it's called Revelations, is going to be released sometime in November. So in between then, they're releasing two expansion packs. This is the first one, and the second one is going to be released in October sometime. So as you can see here, there's going to be 25 cards. It says it at the top right of that little box there. And you're guaranteed one of each card. So it's really nice for the players to guarantee the cards that are in this set. Alter Reality Games has also mentioned that there's a chance that all of the cards in the pack could be hollow. So that's, a neat little thing for players to go after. So what I've done is I've pretty much gone through the cards like I did with Betrayal and just reviewed them. One thing to mention, there is one or two cards missing, and that's because Alter Reality Games has individually released these cards for content creators on YouTube to review. So I thought that was also really cool. But anyway, I hope you liked the video. Give me your opinions below. Let me know what you think. All right, to the video. So the first card we're looking at today is Amateur Witch, which is a 1-cost unit with 1,000 power for the water element. And it's got no effect, so it's pretty much just there for power. The fact that it's a 1-drop for 1,000, where you can start breaking towers on your second turn, is always nice. This card's obviously outclassed by Azure Seer because Azure Seer actually has an effect. But for water to have another 1-drop with 1,000 power is never a bad thing. So next we have Skytree Initiate, which is a 2-cost unit with 1,500 power for the air element. And again, no cost, is just power. But this one is different because air only has one other unit that has 1,500 power for a 2-drop. So I think this is a really good addition to any air deck. The fact that you can be breaking towers on turn 2, it's an IGNEOUS target if you run air as your main, so this is a very good addition to any air element deck, especially for a card that doesn't even have an effect. So next up we have Rainbow Knight, which is a 3-cost unit with 2,500 power for the light element. And I think this is kind of the tipping point for these cards, where you have high power and no effect. After you get past the 1 and 2 drops, it's not worth it to play a card that just has power and no effect for that amount of shard cost. So I think anything going forward from 3 and up, if it doesn't have an effect, it's not going to be worth it in my opinion. So next up is Failed Golem number 3, which is a 4-cost unit with 3,000 power for the dark element. So I know I just said that if a card doesn't have an effect past a 3-cost, it's probably not good. But this card breaks that rule just because of the type of unit it is, which is Golem, which goes along with the rest of the dark element right now. I mean, the Golem cards are very good, and the fact that it's a Golem, it supports pretty much the rest of the deck. So this card actually is good. I don't know how many you would run of it, but it's not worthless like the previous card that we just looked at. And lastly is IGNEOUS.DRAGON, which is a 5-cost unit with 4,000 power, no effect. I don't see the benefit in this. I know it can be searched with Dragonholt, which is kind of nice. It can take out some bigger guardians, most specifically the Water Guardian, the Juggernaut, where he can defend multiple attacks. So I guess that is one scenario, but overall I don't think this card is worth it. So now let's move on to some cards that actually have effects. The first one is ARBOR CARBUNCLE. It's a 1-cost unit with 500 power for the air element, and its effect reads: when this card is returned to your hand from the field, you may search your deck for another copy and add it to your hand. During your turn, expel this card and 2 other copies of it from your hand. Draw 2 cards and switch up to 2 of your shards to active. So you will expel 1 ARBOR CARBUNCLE on the field and then expel 2 from your hand, and then you'll get to draw 2 and switch 2 of your shards to active. So I really like this card. I think it's very good. I think it's an instant addition to anything that's running the air element, whether it be a support with the Spirit Kite or if you're running it as your main with IGNEOUS. So its effect is really easy to get off. All you need to do is start with this card. If you start with it, you can tap 1, summon it, activate KYTE's effect, discard a card, return this to your hand, search another copy. You're going to untap that shard from KYTE's ability, retap the shard, summon another ARBOR CARBUNCLE, and then on your next turn, just do the same thing, and voila. So, very easy, very good. This is much needed for the air element, I think. So next we have Catastrophe Demon, which is a 5-cost unit with 3000 power. It has the Destroyer ability. So next up we have Catastrophe Demon, which is a 5-cost unit with 3000 power for the Dark element. It has the Destroyer ability, and it says your opponent's units and shards come into play exhausted. So this card, if dropped at the right time, can be devastating. The fact that if you can clear your opponent's guardians during the turn that this came out or before it, so they don't have anything on the field, you can pretty much end the game the next turn because your opponent's guardians are going to come into play exhausted. So dropped at the right time, this card can be devastating. The fact that it's a demon instead of a golem drops its value a little bit, but overall pretty good card. Next we have Demon of the Evil Eye, which is a 5-cost unit with 3000 power for the Dark element. It has an Arrive ability that says declare a card name, then your opponent reveals their hand and discards all cards with that name. Draw 1 card for each card discarded this way. So this card's situational. The Dark unit specializes on discarding cards from your opponent's hand, so there's a possibility you know what's in his hand. So played alongside with cards like that, it can be very good. But I think this card's a little too situational. I think it's a trap. Being able to discard cards from your opponent's hand and then draw based on that seems very tempting, but I think it's a little too situational for the amount of cards that actually allow you to see your opponent's hand. So next is Crystal Dimensional Dragon, which is a 10-cost unit with 4000 power for the water element. It's a dragon, and it reads, if you've played 5 or more water spells this turn, this card costs 0 to play. It also has an Arrive ability that says if you play this card from your hand, your opponent cannot put units into play or play spells on their next turn. So obviously this card is extremely devastating if it hits the field. Being a 10 cost is extremely hard, and playing 5 or more water spells in a turn is extremely hard for water as well. So this card's very hard to get out, as it should be with such a broken effect. I would like this card to be good. I don't think it is, just because it's so hard to get out. One thing to mention though is it is a dragon, so it can be searched with Dragon Hole whenever you want to find it. So maybe late game, the fact that Dragon Hole can search this whenever you have 10 shards if the game has lasted that long. So I don't know, maybe don't sleep on this. It could be good, but I think it might just be a little too situational, but I could be 100% wrong about this card. So next we have one of the Argent cards that is actually going to be released in this expansion, and its name is METAIAL, the Sealed Celestial, which is a 8-cost unit with 5000 power. It's a legendary entity, so you can only run one of it. It has the Destroyer ability, and it says this card cannot be targeted by unit abilities. You also have to flip your champion and spirit face down, but when you do, you destroy all units and augments your opponent controls. So this card is obviously high risk, high reward. You're dropping this to end the game. It's obviously got a devastating effect, but it also has a devastating drawback. Also to note, you do have to have your spirit face up to play this card. You can't soul burst your spirit and then just flip your champion face down to play this card. So both have to be face up to activate this card from your hand. Obviously, very good, but high risk, high reward. So next we have Raging SHARDBEAST, which is a 1-cost unit with 2,000 power, and it's an Argent card, so it can be played in anything. And its effect reads, you cannot play cards with cost 3 or more. So its effect is pretty restrictive. You can only play 1 or 2 cost units, or spells, or augments, anything like that. With that being said, I think this card is the best card in this expansion. It puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to get rid of it. If not, it's going to be breaking towers extremely early in the game and puts your opponent so far behind. So this card's really good. This is the card I think you want to get out of this expansion. If you're gonna get anything out of it, this is the card. So now we're going to take a look at some legendary shards. And the first one is KYTE, the Spirit Emerald. So all of these legendary shards are our spirits that are locked away in the shard light before they're released, and we can use them as spirit. So that's a little bit of the lore behind that. So this legendary shard reads, if you control another legendary shard, send this card to the discard zone. You can exhaust it and produce one, like any normal shard, or you can exhaust it, flip your spirit face down, and switch up to 2 of your shards to active. This is interesting. I don't know how I feel about these legendary shards right now. The fact that you have to lose your spirit, exhaust that, just to get the effect, and to switch up 2 of your shards to active, I'm sure that there are situations where that can be really good. And I think you play this just to give yourself the option, because it's a normal shard otherwise. So with that being said, I actually don't know how good these are yet. At first glance, this doesn't seem too game breaking, which is good. I think that's very good. You don't want legendary shards that are game breaking, because then it adds too much RNG to the game. So I do like this. Next we have the legendary shard for water, which is Fizzy the Spirit Sapphire. And it says if you control another legendary shard, send it to the discard zone. So all of the legendary shards say that. They all produce 1 like any normal shard. But his special ability is you can exhaust it, flip the spirit face down, and then draw 2 cards. This one is good in my opinion. I think being able to draw 2 cards can be pretty game breaking. So this one is good in my opinion, but not so good that it gives the person who drew it first an advantage. I think you got to use these at the opportune moment to get the most value out of them. Next we have Corona the Spirit Ruby, which is the fire element legendary shard. Again, it says if you control another legendary shard, you send it to the discard zone. You can exhaust it and produce 1, or you can exhaust, flip your spirit face down, and destroy a target unit. So this one is also really good. The fact that it's spot removal for anything, any kind of unit that is giving you a hard time that you don't have a direct answer to, you can use this legendary shard to remove it. So I really like this one. This one is good. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the review, and as always, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you later.